We all know someone who seems to have it all completely figured out. They are the highly reliable, flawless professional, gliding through high-pressure situations without breaking a sweat. They never drop a ball, and they never seem to need help. But this graphic reveals what is actually happening beneath the surface. While the world sees corporate success above the waterline, the psychological reality hidden below is exhausting. They are drowning in severe imposter syndrome, terrified that one mistake will expose them as a fraud. Psychologists call this archetype the golden child. This image contrasts two very different versions of their story. The solid gold trophy represents the myth society believes, a lucky kid showered with resources and adoration. But the shattered wireframe shows the reality. These children survived on approval that could be snatched away the second they stepped out of line. From a very young age, these children learned a devastating lesson. Their value was never based on who they actually were. Their worth was entirely tied to their utility, how well they performed, and how good they made their family look to the outside world. To understand how a child gets trapped in this dynamic, we have to look at the architects of the cage. Often, this starts with narcissistic parents, who treat their child as a tool to serve their own ego, rather than a separate person. This diagram shows how that happens. On the left, the grandiose parent uses the child as a trophy to boast about. On the right, the vulnerable parent uses the child as an emotional caretaker to keep them stable. Notice how both sets of arrows point inward, directing the parent's needs squarely onto the child in the center. The parent's specific personality might look different, but the trap built around the child is identical. The child is denied the chance to develop their own identity, becoming a mere extension of the parent's psychological world. To maintain this control, the family operates like a rigged internal economy where love is the currency. This flowchart breaks down the repeating loop that trains the child to keep performing at all costs. It starts here at the top. The parent imposes a rigid expectation, like demanding perfect grades. To stay safe, the child suppresses their own desires and executes the required behavior perfectly. Next, the child receives a brief flash of praise. It's easy to mistake this validation for real love, but the parent's ego demands even more, and the goalpost is immediately moved further away. Hovering over this entire loop is a devastating threat. Look at this jagged line on the left. If the child fails even once, love is revoked instantly, risking being cast as the family bad seed. Running on this treadmill year after year shapes a child deeply. They grow up training themselves to equate emotional exhaustion with a feeling of safety, because performing is the only way they know how to survive. This high-pressure environment goes beyond changing how a child acts. It physically reshapes the architecture of their brain. It wires the body's threat detection system, the amygdala, to stay chronically activated, like a smoke alarm that won't turn off. This graph illustrates that physical toll. The dotted line at the bottom shows a securely attached nervous system, a calm, gentle wave. Above it, those jagged spikes show the golden child's baseline. Their nervous system is in overdrive, constantly scanning for the slightest sign that a parent is withdrawing their affection. To understand how isolating this is, look at the sibling on the left, the scapegoat. They suffer overt blame, but because the abuse is visible, they often escape the family earlier with a clearer grip on reality. Meanwhile, the golden child is trapped on a pedestal, elevated but unable to move. This creates a cruel irony in the professional world. We often praise an adult for anticipatory leadership because they excel at managing others' moods. But in many cases, we are actually applauding a survival-level trauma response built to handle a volatile home. No human body can sustain that level of biological pressure forever. By adolescence, the stress of the gilded cage becomes unbearable, and the pressure cooker eventually explodes. This diagram outlines the two main ways a teenager tries to cope. Path A points to the tightrope walkers, those who dive deeper into perfectionism to maintain their perfect identity. Path B points to the escape artists, who use rebellion and rule-breaking to forcefully sever the tie to their parent. The direction a teenager takes is heavily influenced by their environment. This chart maps a reality for many Black daughters, where expectations of unyielding strength and historical systemic trauma amplify the demand for perfection. When there is a lack of healthy role modeling and nurturing, it leaves a deep emotional deficit, represented by the void in the center. Without a safe place to process their grief, the teenager may turn to delinquency just to find a sense of belonging. In these specific, enmeshed environments, severe rebellion is rarely a case of bad behavior. It is often the only available language a child has left to communicate that their psychological needs are being completely ignored. If this cycle is left alone, it echoes straight into adulthood. This flowchart shows how an adult golden child unintentionally replicates their childhood loop, choosing partners and bosses where they must constantly earn love through relentless performance. Ending this pattern takes deeper work than simply understanding it intellectually. You might know the cycle exists, but your body still holds on to the physical terror of being rejected. Clinical healing requires convincing the nervous system that the threat has passed. This chart lists 3 specific tools for the job. One method, EMDR, focuses on processing the physical shakes and tension of rejection stored in the body's limbic system. Another, called IFS, helps you befriend your inner critic. A third, CBT, helps dismantle the rigid all-or-nothing thinking that makes any mistake feel like a complete failure. A major realization often happens when looking at our inner parts. That vicious inner critic screaming at you to be perfect is actually a protector. It's a part of you that's terrified of being abandoned, trying its best to keep you safe the only way it knows how. Healing isn't about forcing yourself to think positively. It requires physically teaching your nervous system that good enough is safe. And it's about letting the body know that you don't have to be perfect to be protected anymore. This graphic provides a framework to step off the pedestal. By naming the script and setting boundaries, you separate your identity from the costume. Step 2 involves invisible grief. You must give yourself permission to mourn the unconditional love you deserved but never received. You can start with small actions today. Try doing a non-critical task imperfectly just to see what happens. Practice sitting with the discomfort of someone else's mild disappointment without rushing to fix it for them.